I know a lot of families now that um, buy things directly from places like Jos, from places like Kaduna,
Yeah.
um, and it's still not optimal, but it's still better than what they will get in Lagos. What they are trying to do is to basically bypass infrastructure. So I think the first thing is an infrastructure that runs through that system. So starting from transportation, road access to those farms, to you know um, to cold chain, which is part of infrastructure. Um, I think that the rail system, the cargo rail system has to be developed, um, because still transporting largely, probably, so I don't have the figure on this, but just on the top of my head, probably close to 90% of food is still transported through cars and trucks
True.
across the country. There is no way that will not be subjected to a lot of added cost. So I'll say infrastructure play from transport to power. Power is very important because power,
Mm.
cheap power will aid cold chain, will aid processing, and so the first level is infrastructure. I think the next thing will be around data, and data transparency, because because I have had situations to work with and have engagement with some government bodies. I know that there's a lot of data that is collected around farming, movement of farm produce and all of that. There maybe like food processing, but a lot of the data is shrouded in secrecy, not necessarily intentionally, but it's not readily available. So if you're trying to find data around food, around agriculture, you have to go to extreme lengths to get reliable and functional data.